Everyone, welcome and thank you so much for being a part of our Bible study on the Battle Buddy, on our series that we are going through here online on YouTube and on the church app. Thank you so much for being a part of this study and that you're taking time out of your day to join us and that you are really enjoying this. Um, if you're watching this from the north, from Minnesota and nearby areas, you understand when I say that many people are getting their winter fatigue is in full force, and it is wonderful. I was talking with a few people about that today with the winter fatigue and how we're done with winter, and even though winter's not done with us. But I hope that you are snuggled up and that you are ready to dive into the study today, and that I hope that you are ready to get a lot out of it. We've been having some really great discussion looking at the Armor Bearer series and looking at how it impacts interpersonal relationships, employee employer relationships, marriage, all these areas that the battle buddy just kind of comes into play. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Last week, and the benefit again of having the online format is that if you missed a previous episode, you can find it here in the playlist, either in the church app or on YouTube. And so I won't go into great detail of reviewing the previous episode. You can kind of catch that for yourself because they're really, really good. A lot of information in this, and so I hope that you are able to get a lot of out of this. Last week we talked about when the armor bearer leader fails, and that was last week where we talked about how when leaders they listen to the wrong individuals and the disaster that can arise when the leader fails in the armor bearer relationship. And so that is in fails B, and that is the previous week, and you can find that here on the playlist, and it should just be the previous episode. And so I advise you, if you missed it, to avail yourself. If you want to catch up and rehash it, it's a quick 33 minutes long listen, and you should be able to get a ton out of it. But we're going to move forward, so I hope that you're prepared. If you have been taking notes, thank you. That means a lot to me. And I hope that you're able to retain a lot, and that is really beneficial. If you listen to this when you're driving, wonderful. Pay attention, please. And I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I hope that you enjoy listening to this as I enjoy preparing it. Usually these lessons, just to give you a full scale, it takes me a day or so, maybe a little bit more, to prepare these topics because I want to make sure that I am prepared, that I am thought out, and that what I have to say lines up. And so I hope that you enjoy this material as I enjoy learning it for myself, at least. And so it's really beneficial. Today, I want to show us a principle. I want to talk about a principle that may or may not be related to the role of the armor bearer. However, it's an important principle for any team that works together. And so with that in mind, it can make sense. I guess that makes it a part of the armor bearer conversation. You know, this is a really big principle that, as I studied, I was really amazed at how much information was in that. And so I hope that you're prepared for that. If you got your Bible ready, thank you. If you got your notepads ready, and we're just going to dive right into this particular principle for today's topic. I'm calling it the topic I'm going to talk about is the armor bearers working with other armor bearers, and that can be a little convoluted, but it's the idea of like when you work on a team and you work on a team together, and you've got your role and somebody else has another role, but you're both working for the same purpose, or you both work for the same employer or for the same church, or you're in the same family. The armor bearer role comes into play now, where armor bearers, multiple armor bearers, are all working together for the same purpose. And so that idea of working together. And so I hope that you're ready for that you're excited about that, because I want to get into this topic today. So to introduce this topic, we're going to be looking at Nehemiah. Nehemiah is an interesting guy. In the Bible book that bears his name, we learn that he is a cupbearer to the king of Persia. Persia had had taken over the Babylonian Empire, which the Babylonians had been the ones that had sacked and taken over Israel and Judah, and basically had just um, torched Jerusalem. And Babylonians were just terrible, and so then the Persians rose up and handed it to the Babylonians, if you will. And so this Persian king Artaxerxes, the king Artaxerxes is now in authority. He's now the ruler, and Nehemiah is his cupbearer. Now, to help us understand Nehemiah at length, we need to consider two important details. Okay, the first detail is that Nehemiah he is an Israelite. Okay, he is a patriot. He loves his God. He loves his people. He loves his city. He is passionate for them, and so we can surmise this in Nehemiah chapter 1, because in Nehemiah chapter 1 we find this individual crying. He's weeping unto the Lord. He's crying over the condition of his city, of his people, of the city walls, and the report that came to him. He's just broken, and so we see that he is a patriot. He loves God. He loves his people, and so that's the first thing we can get from him, is that he is a patriot that loves God and loves his people. The second thing we need to recognize about Nehemiah is that he is a royal cupbearer. And I don't want to overly glass on this. I want us to get a really good understanding with the amount of time I'm dedicating to this particular point. Nehemiah was a cupbearer. He's a royal cupbearer to a king, which it required and involved a very explicit level of trust. The kings had to explicitly trust Nehemiah in order for Nehemiah to operate within that role. And that's kind of what makes it a little bit interesting, because Nehemiah earned Artaxerxes' trust. And the reason why that's so vital is because whether in public moments or private moments, if he got thirsty or hungry, he would request his sustenance. He would request a drink or request food. And so it was up to Nehemiah to wait on the king in that regards. And so Nehemiah was the one who would select the cup. He was the one who would select which wine or which drink to bring before the king. And he would test it himself first, and then he would give it to the king himself. And so there's a lot of trust involved in that role. So we see that he's a Jew, loves his people, loves his city, loves God, but he's a cupbearer and has heavily earned the trust of Artaxerxes, the king of Persia. And so a very very important role, very trustworthy. So he's a highly respected man. He's a highly intelligent man. He's a very trustworthy, diligent individual, and he loves God and loves people. And so we kind of get a good character profile just based upon his job and his response to the report of the city. We can develop a really good character profile on Nehemiah. And to make a long story short, he gets this report. He ends up winning the king's favor to go back to Jerusalem. Okay, he goes back to Jerusalem, but he doesn't just go back to Jerusalem just on his own accord. He actually gets to go with basically a blank check of resources. He wins the king's favor as the cupbearer. He's got such a trust with the king already. And so when he shares this with the king goes with him, or rather the king's heart goes with him. The king doesn't himself, but he shares this development, and the king is just won over by it. And so he sends Nehemiah with what is essentially a blank check to get the job done. Not only does he get a blank check to get the job done, but we also see in the book of Nehemiah that the king makes Nehemiah the governor of the province, the governor of Jerusalem and Israel. And so he's a now he goes from being a cupbearer to like a very high ranking official in this capacity. And so shortly after arriving, he gets an armed escort. He gets all the resources. He goes to the city. He gets to go and do what is set in his heart. So shortly after arriving in the city and seeing the work at hand, he starts to begin to see what's going to take. And then word starts spreading out that he's there with the king's resources to get the job done. And so now he begins to receive setbacks. He begins to receive opposition to the rebuilding of the city and its walls. Now, this setback, for starters, the people have not been working on the wall anyways. And then when he comes, it's the work's not getting done. It's been months, if not years, and no one is doing it. And so he has the diligence and says, "Let's make this happen." And as soon as he says, "Let this happen," that's when he starts getting opposition. So Samaria objects, other people object, and he has to face these objections. Now, this is important. I guess maybe this might be the why battle buddies are important. Why the whole idea of an armor bearer is very, very important. And it has everything to do with this, because when we go through life working in a business, ministering in a church, working with a family, all of these things, there's going to be difficult times. You're going to have moments of setback or difficulty or maybe even opposition, and these things are going to come up. And even especially as Christians, as followers of Christ, living in these times and living in a society or a culture that is anti Bible value, anti Christ values, and having to live our lives in that capacity, when we have to stand for our values and stand for our the Bible convictions that we believe on, that we hold to, and what we're trying to build, we will face opposition. We will face difficulties, and we can expect those things, even more so as believers. And when we try to build and work on certain things, and so that is why it's vital that we do work together. It's vital that we do come together in this regards. And so we see that Nehemiah's neighbors, like I said earlier, were objecting to him rebuilding what once was. And that's huge. They were objecting to him doing the work, or leaving them out of it anyways. And so living with Christian values, Christ values, Bible values, and affirming these things for, affirming and trying to build the nuclear family, or trying to strengthen the family unit, or to instill biblical values in education and in the workplace, and to instill a level of morality. A lot of those things, when we're doing it from a biblical position, that the world is going to object, and they're going to eject it, and those that are in the world are going to object what we're doing. And just as Nehemiah faced opposition and objection to his rebuilding, when we begin to assert the desire of the Lord in our lives and to live biblical lives, we're going to face that opposition as well. And so the principle that I'm building up towards here is very, very key for us. This idea of armor bearers going at it together. And so that's a major part. And so that is the key principle right here. And so I want to read a little bit out of Nehemiah chapter 4. So if you have your Bibles, Nehemiah 4, and we're going to start with verse 15. I'm reading out of the NIV today. Nehemiah 4, verse 15 through 18, it says like this. It says, "When our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to our own work. From that day on, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officers posted themselves behind all the people of Judah who were rebuilding the wall. Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. And each of the builders wore his sword on his side as he worked. But the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. So this is a key thing in this. Okay. For starters, they trusted God. And I loved how it says that God frustrated the plot. He frustrated what the enemies were going to do. When we abide in Christ, when we walk in the will of God, He God was God's will be done. It's a wonderful place to be. And when we have opposition, if we are truly going in the direction and the will of the Lord, truly doing that, God will make sure that His purposes are accomplished. Okay, and so they did that. They trusted in God, and God did His part. But there's still so much more in this. Nehemiah is leading very well, and he is leading a group. He gets together a group of armor bearers, and I like this because yes, he was the one that was tasked by the king to rebuild the wall, and so technically, if he really wanted to be dumb, he could have done and got the materials himself and just did the work himself. And he probably would have died before it'd be finished. So there's a big task that's got to be accomplished, something beyond his own personal capabilities. And so what he does is he gets to himself a group of armor bearers, and they did the work. They got together to help him accomplish what was in his heart to do. And this one, they did this, and I like how it says, each one was working their own work. They're doing their own assigned tasks. So I want to give you a breakdown of armor bearers working with other armor bearers to accomplish a mission. Okay. This is huge. So I want you to get this. The teams were working in areas that were close to home. So the men of the city were assigned portions of the city wall that corresponded to where their homes lived. So where their houses were, they were assigned that portion of the wall. And so the level of personal involvement in rebuilding the wall was pretty heavy because they're rebuilding the wall portion that's corresponding to their house. So when I talk about being close to home, I'm talking about doing a work that's close to your heart, doing a work that's what's important to you. And so they're all working for this same purpose. Okay, what's the large purpose? Rebuilding the wall, rebuilding the city. What is that's the larger, grander aimed mission? The mission of the organization. In ministerial minds, that could be what's the vision of the church? The large church is reaching families. And then within that large aim of reaching families, now it comes down to what's your portion of the wall. You know, sometimes it could be ministering to single mothers. It could be single fathers. It could be the nursery. It could be ministering to the teenagers. And so you find that portion that's close to your quote unquote home, and you rebuild, you build, you work on that portion. And we see that, and that's exemplified in Nehemiah chapter 3, where he breaks down, so and so is going to work on that portion of the wall near their home. So and so is going to work on this portion of the wall, and that's by their house. And that's an important thing there. And so he wisely had the people working on the parts that were important to them. And so the areas of their life, you know, family, business, ministry, and more, they must be attended to in order to have success. When all of the things are working together and the city walls are all being worked on corporately together, then the entire thing is being built up together. But it's happening by this group working on that area, this group working on that place, and over in this ministry or that ministry, or maybe this area of your home. You know, it could be, if I were to break it down on a home level, how can you take your family and say, okay, we are going to keep our home strong here's how we do it. Here's where the younger kids are taken care of by the older kids, or hey, maybe we can break it down to the chores and be like, okay, let's put our house back together. So so and so is going to work on folding the laundry. So and so is going to vacuum the rugs. I remember growing up as a boy, and we had our chores were divided accordingly, and so one of us would have the dishes, and the other one would have the laundry, and each week it would change, and so then the next week someone else would have the dishes, and someone else would have the laundry, and so that was really interesting. But it got the tasks done. Um, at least in my memory, I could be wrong. If my family watches this, and they're gonna be like, "No, Ryan, you're way off." And so that's a fascinating thing to consider. But we see that each one had their responsibility in their area to handle, and so that's what they did. It was not everybody was at one portion of the wall, and then when that was done, then they moved to the next portion. No, no, no. It was everybody worked together to meet their assigned task. Okay. Each of them had different roles. One team had the tools to work on the wall, and the others were there to protect. It's they carried bows, they carried, and so it's fascinating that they all worked together. There was guards to protect the workers, and all these things happened, and there was a protection and a relief that took place, and so we see that there was assigned roles, and each within those assigned roles, each one also had their portion of the wall to build. And so those are the two big important things there. And it's an amazing thing. Okay. The structure on display here is amazing. When you look at the structure and how Nehemiah had broken it all down, you really see how he got them to do this, because they had their areas and their energies, and then the relief workers to make sure that the work was constantly in motion. Okay. It's really easy for people, whether you're in leadership or whatnot, to take all of our energy and to put it into a singular person or into a singular area of concern. We put all of our, basically, it's the whole idea of putting all your eggs in one basket. We're all going to work on this one area. I mean, that would be like me taking every youth volunteer, every kids volunteer, and saying, okay, you're done. You're not to do anything in those ministries anymore until we get the nursery going great. And so I sacrifice the ministry to our children and the ministry to our youth in order for the nursery to be an excellence. And well, the problem is I still have teenagers. So I can't adequately sacrifice those other ministries because the one needs to be picked up. And so what we do is we sit there and we make sure that all of them are being built up at the same time. And that takes a lot of structure. But that it helps. We watch that, and then you make sure that people are not getting burnt out. And so you keep an eye on your volunteers, and you have your backup team ready to relieve those who are currently serving. And so it is huge. This is something that's really amazing, because to use an example from scripture, in the New Testament, the Bible talks about the importance of the body all working together for the good. And so the Lord uses that body as an illustration. You can be a thumb, you can be a toe, you can be a nose, you can be an ear, you can be a head. Not everyone can be all the same things, and so it's important for us to recognize the individual gifts that people have, and that the body, each portion is completely different, and that they all work together. The body functions as a whole together, each one operating within their assigned role, within their gifted role to accomplish these amazing feats. But it's recognizing that not one part is more important than the other. They're all equal. They might have different functions, and it's important for us to not to give certain functions more value than they ought, but it's to see that all those functions coming together is what gives the entire being its health. Okay. And so that is really important there. A wise leader will always recognize the gifts that individuals have and plug them into the area that is the closest to their home. Okay, remember I'm talking about home being what pulls on your heart. What is your area that pulls on you, your home, your concerns. And a good leader would recognize your talents and your gifts and what your heartbeat is and plug you into where you can utilize those gifts in an area that accomplishes the assigned task. One home is not more important than the other, like I said earlier. And the what really matters is that the whole wall, the whole ministry, the whole organization must be built up as a whole to see it accomplished. And so getting armor bearers plugged into these little goals, these little things, will begin to get the whole wall built up. And so, it's like I said, you're not just sitting there and taking all of your armor bearers and putting them in just one place, but you're using and you're seeing their gifts and saying, okay, I need to put my armor bearers, I need armor bearers and battle buddies in this area and in that area and in that area and so on and whatnot, and in that place, we plug them in and we utilize them, and they're operating in their gifts, they're operating in an area that's close to their home, and they're able to excel, they're able to grow in that, and the job is able to get accomplished. And so that's a huge thing. Okay. And then of course recognizing that you might have every area in your ministry filled. Well, then what you do is you start preparing your relief armor bearers, those who are going to, when you're ones who are doing the existing work exhaust themselves out, you can give them to a season of rest and have your next team ready to go in and keep that, so the ministry or the function or the responsibilities are continually being met. And so that's an important deal. And so, the big thing too is that the Jews that were living in the city were working on city walls, and so there's a personal investment in there. They're really investing in that place. And so when the teams of the armor bearers work together, something amazing happens. When the teams all work and they all come together and they're all functioning in that proper alignment, one with another, something beautiful happens. In Nehemiah chapter 6, we get to see this amazing fulfillment take place. Nehemiah got the group of people together. He inspired them. He equipped them. He protected them. He gave them the portions they needed to get the assigned tasks done. And they worked on the city walls, the whole city walls, together. Each one protecting the other and accomplishing the assigned tasks together. And what was amazing, as each one worked in areas that were close to their heart, the goal was accomplished in record time. The wall was rebuilt in 52 days. Nehemiah 6, verse 15, it was done in 52 days. And so what had taken them years on their own trying to doing whatever, Nehemiah comes in, and in less than 2 months, in about 2 months' time, he completely brings the city back to where it needs to be. And that is huge. And it's because he recognized the need of the people working together, working in areas that are close to their home, their personal investment, to see the task done. And he does it, and they excel in it. So this is the principle of when armor bearers work together. It's not that you have to have one armor bearer or one battle buddy to come and help you with a task or two. You might have a Paul and Timothy relationship, which I'll get to here in the coming weeks, but it's much more than that. And so recognizing that regards, and then seeing what's taking place, and investing in that, getting that home investment, getting that team in there. We can have more than one team, but at the same time, you can pour yourself into one individual and mentor and shepherd them and teach them, so that they shadow you and they learn how you do things, and you have your one armor bearer that you really poured into. But there are some tasks that are too big for any just one person, and you need a team. You need a team of armor bearers. In churches, it's really amazing when we talk about a team of armor bearers, because I've got a team running the youth ministry right now, and it is a team. There's more than one. I got a team, a large team, doing our children's church, our children's ministries. And likewise with our nursery, the team I've got doing our nursery and trying to get that going, and the individuals, there's more than one that are working on hard on that. And then our teaching team with our leaders and our teachers who are instructing in the Word of God. These are vital roles that are helping us build and to make disciples and to fulfill the Great Commission, to make disciples of all people and teaching them to obey all that God has commanded us. And so that's a huge thing. And we got to recognize it and see that. But it takes a whole team. It can't be just one person. It can't just be two people. To get all these ministries functioning together, it takes a lot of armor bearers. And, as leaders, we need to recognize those gifts in those people, utilize those gifts, launch them in that place, and allow them to excel for the sake that the entire ministry, if we were talking about a church, the entire ministry being built up and strengthened. In the workplace, you could have that one armor bearer, that one employee that you can just always count on, that it's always going to get the job done. But you also know that you have multiple responsibilities that have got to get done in the workplace. And so you utilize a team with assigned tasks to make sure that every area receives excellence. And that's an important thing. I talked a little bit about it in the leadership series, in our previous teaching series on leadership, the idea of delegating your authority and seeing that accomplished. And that's an important part. But that's how the armor bearers work together. Not one task is more important to the other. They're all equal to the vital health of the organization or to the ministry or to the family. And in that parameters, we protect each other, we make sure the assigned tasks are getting done, and we aim for the larger goal of, for Nehemiah, it was rebuilding the wall. For a church, it's what's the vision of your church? Is it reaching people? Is it ministering to families? Is it loving people? Whatever the case may be. What is your organization, your business? What is your business? What's the vision, the purpose of your business? That's the overarching goal. And then underneath that goal, you have all these little other assigned responsibilities and assigned tasks to help you aim for and achieve your primary goal. And so getting armor bearers to come in and work together as a team, each one is a vital function, and to encourage and build that up and to communicate that they're vital. And, when you put them in a place that's close to their home, close to their heartbeat, then you'll begin to see that stuff being worked out passionately with a level of excitement and a diligence, because again, for the Israelites, they were working on the areas that were close to their home. And so for them, it was all about protecting what's theirs. That wall is going to defend my family. So I need to make sure that I build that up well. And if I got my neighbors who are working with me on this portion of the wall, and then on the other side of them, those neighbors that are working on their portion of the wall, and over time, in quicker than you would expect, that place is going to be built up. So that is the principle for today. The armor bearers working with other armor bearers, going together and better together. And so I hope that you got a lot out of that. I hope that you really enjoyed this time together. And thank you for taking time out of your day once again. If you are in the area, we would love to have you come and join us. We meet in person, 9 a.m. Sunday mornings, Sunday school. Sundays at 10 a.m. is worship. And we have a wonderful service. We have prayer on Sunday nights at 6. We would love to have you join us on those. And then as well, we meet in person on Wednesday nights. 5:30 is a fundraiser dinner. And then at 6:30 is our class groups. And we would love to have you be a part of that. And that is really wonderful. If you are not able to be with us in person, or if you just want to stay better connected with the church, we have a free church app in the app stores. Just search Albert Lee Assembly of God, and you will find it there with a black and white logo with a little salmon undertone there. We also release our videos on YouTube for our midweek Bible study with yours truly. And we also, and that's on Thursday mornings at 7. We also live stream our Sunday morning worship at 10 on YouTube. And you can also find those later in the week in the church app as well. If you would like to give towards the ministry of our church and help us to excel in all of how we do things, whether through equipment or just reaching our neighbors or even furthering our influence, we would love to partner with you. There's a link for giving in the comment section below. You can donate to the church and go through a secure site for that. There's also a giving tab in the church app as well. Thank you so much for being a part of our study today. God bless you, and may you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Take care, and God bless. Bye-bye.